Welcome to Outside Views. Today we're discussing a crucial question. Should Britain rewrite its post-Brexit rules? The Institute for Public Policy Research has called for a fundamental shift in the UK's trade and diplomatic strategies, highlighting the economic and political challenges facing Britain in the wake of Brexit. With declining trade, labour shortages and a turbulent global landscape, the call for action has never been louder. But let's begin by examining the scale of the problem. Since leaving the EU single market and the customs union in 2021, Britain's trade position has significantly weakened. Between 21 and 23, UK goods exports to the EU dropped by 27% and imports from the EU fell by 32%. And meanwhile, other G7 countries like the US, Japan, France and Italy have experienced a trade boom with an average increase of 5% from 2019 to 2023. The UK, in contrast, has seen a 10% decline in total goods trade during the same period. And these figures are not just statistics. They represent lost opportunities for businesses, higher costs for consumers, and a diminished role for Britain on the global stage. Adding to this economic pressure is the political uncertainty introduced by Donald Trump's return to the White House this week. Trump's proposed protectionist policies, including tariffs on imported goods, could have significant implications for British businesses. Although his primary target is China, the EU and UK are not immune to the potential fallout. For Britain, which has yet to finalize a comprehensive trade deal with the US, this represents both a challenge and an opportunity. The IPPR argues that even a minimal deal could help Britain navigate Trump's tariff regime and support export growth. At the heart of the IPPR's recommendations is the need for a closer relationship with the EU, though. The think tank suggests negotiating a veterinary agreement to reduce checks on food crossing the Channel, which could increase agri-food exports to the EU by up to 22.5%. It also advocates for a mutual recognition agreement to ensure UK goods meet EU standards, thereby easing trade barriers. And these measures, while not a return to the single market, represent practical steps to mitigate the economic fallout of Brexit. And another critical area is climate policy. The IPPR highlights the importance of linking the UK and EU emissions trading systems to avoid the EU's incoming carbon border adjustment mechanism. This mechanism charges importers based on the carbon intensity of certain goods, creating additional costs for non-EU countries or third countries. By aligning with EU climate policies, the UK could not only reduce trade friction but also strengthen its commitment to achieving net zero emissions. But why is a rewrite of post-Brexit rules in Britain necessary now? The IPPR points to a lack of strategic direction in Britain's trade policy since the 2016 referendum. Efforts to secure mini-deals with non-EU countries have reached their limits, failing to offset the losses from leaving the EU's free trade zone. And meanwhile, industries such as energy, defense, food, healthcare and pharmaceuticals are struggling to compete internationally due to regulatory divergence and trade barriers. The Labour government, led by Prime Minister Keir Starmer, has expressed a desire to reset relations with the EU. And Chancellor Rachel Reeves recently attended an EU finance ministers' meeting, signalling a shift towards pragmatism and cooperation. If it will be, we will see. But Starmer himself has emphasized the importance of building a mature, business-like relationship with Europe. However, significant hurdles remain, and one major obstacle is the political narrative surrounding Brexit. Despite mounting evidence of its economic cost, Brexit remains a polarizing issue. Any attempt to rewrite the rules risks being framed as a Brexit betrayal by right-wing media and political opponents. And this fear of backlash has led to a cautious approach, with the government avoiding any suggestion of rejoining the EU, the customs union or the single market. And another challenge is the EU's reluctance to entertain piecemeal negotiations. No cherry picking, because Brussels had made it clear that cherry picking is not an option. For Britain to secure concessions, it will need to offer something in return. and this could include addressing contentious issues like fishing rights, farming subsidies, and immigration policies. Public opinion, however, is shifting. A majority of Britons now for a while support closer ties with the EU, and there is growing recognition of the benefits of European collaboration. Initiatives like a youth mobility scheme, which would allow under-30s to travel and work freely across the EU and Britain, are highly popular. And such proposals not only address labour shortages, but also foster cultural and economic exchange. The IPPR's call for a rewrite also highlights the importance of addressing domestic challenges. Reducing tariffs on imports that support net zero targets, for example, could lower costs for green technologies and accelerate the transition to a sustainable economy. Investing in export support programs and modernizing trade agreements could help British industries compete globally. While the idea of a fundamental rewrite of the TCA is out of the question, the rewrite of post-Brexit rules is ambitious but not without precedent. The EU itself has evolved through continuous negotiation and adaptation, and Britain too can pursue a pragmatic approach that balances economic interests with political realities. And this means engaging in honest dialogue, rebuilding trust with European partners, and recognizing that cooperation is not a sign of weakness, but a pathway to shared prosperity. And the potential benefits of a real reset extend beyond trade. Closer ties with the EU could improve the UK's global standing, enhance its role in addressing climate change, and strengthen its ability to tackle shared security threats. In a world facing geopolitical uncertainties, from Russia's aggression in Ukraine to the rise of authoritarian regimes, unity among democratic nations is more important than ever. And Britain's estrangement from Europe has weakened its voice in these critical discussions. Rebuilding these connections could restore its influence and relevance on the global stage. However, this process will require political courage. Leaders must be willing to confront the myths and misinformation that have shaped the Brexit debate for years. And this includes addressing the economic realities of Brexit, from its impact on small businesses to the challenges faced by workers in industries reliant on EU trade. Transparency and accountability will be key to gaining public trust and support for any new strategy. The Labour government's cautious approach reflects a desire to avoid the mistakes of the past, but caution should not translate into inaction as it does at the moment. The longer Britain waits to address these issues, the greater the economic and social costs will become. By taking proactive steps to rewrite post-Brexit rules in Britain, the government can lay the groundwork for a more prosperous and sustainable future. And alignment will be key here with the EU. So in conclusion, the call to rewrite post-Brexit rules is both urgent and necessary. The challenges facing Britain's economy and its place in the world demand bold action and strategic thinking. By pursuing closer ties with the EU, modernizing trade agreements, and investing in key industries, Britain can begin to address the shortcomings of Brexit and chart a path towards renewed prosperity and influence. So thank you for joining me on this little dive into the case for rewriting post-Brexit rules in Britain. And if you found this analysis insightful, please like the video, share it, and subscribe to Outside Views for more in-depth discussions on post-Brexit politics and global trade. And of course, let's continue the conversation in the comments. Do you think Britain can achieve a meaningful reset with the EU? What steps should the government prioritize in addressing the challenges of Brexit? And I really look forward to your thoughts. And as always, stay informed and see you in the next video. One of those is right here in the end screen.